honorable speakers, dear participants in the room, dear online participants, we will start in a few minutes. The time to gather more participants from the other sessions who are joining us. So just a bit of patience, we will soon start. Thank you.
Okay, so sorry for the rush, but I was on fertilizers and I had to run from the other side. Can we start settling down? Okay. So first of all, excuse my delay, but everything is really tight from one session to the other. But we can start with this meeting. And first of all, I would like to thank the Honorable Ministers of Sierra Leone, Ms. Francis Piaget Algali, on my right, the Honorable Minister Yeshi Penjor, Minister of Agriculture and Livestock of Bhutan, Ms. Turaya Triki, my friend Turaya, who is the Director of Sustainable Production of IFAD, and Mr. Kirti Prasanna Misra from India, Ecociate Director. And there will be closing remarks from my good friend Mohammed Mansouri, who is the Director of the FAO Investment Center. I'm told we have until 13:30 sharp, so we need to be strict on time. And I would like to give the floor to the Minister. We can start maybe with Minister Algali. And my question to you is, we have learned a lot about food system challenges through the dialogues and the food systems assessments. So how do you see your country being one of the pilot countries to move from knowledge to action? And what has been the process to move from systems knowledge to action?
Thank you very much for that question. Thank you all for inviting me to be part of this panel. I must say, first of all, that the government of Sierra Leone has demonstrated strong commitment for moving towards sustainable food systems since the Food Systems Dialogue in 2021 and since the development of our roadmap for sustainable food systems. Under the collaborative effort of the government, the EU and FAO and AgriNatura in Sierra Leone, Sierra Leone is one of the first countries for implementing the food systems transformation. Transforming the agricultural sector is a challenge, but one of the things that we identified as one of the challenges were bringing all of the different commitments that the government had made as far as sustainable food systems was concerned. We looked at not only the food systems pathway, but we also looked at commitments that the government had made for scaling up nutrition, the Nutrition for Growth Summit. We looked at commitments the government had made for the Dakar Compact. We look at commitments the government had made for the food assessment that was done in Sierra Leone. So based on the project, we decided to divide all of them into thematic areas. And we set up thematic groups according to the various thematic areas. So there were different entry points: improving productivity and production-based agroecological approaches. There was improving the competitiveness of the local value chain. There was the reduction of post-harvest losses, improving the school feeding program, focusing on sanitation facilities, nutrition education. All of those components were divided into thematic areas. So we had the different groups working on thematic areas. We also involved the universities as members of the team, in addition to various stakeholders, because we thought that research, the component of research, was an integral part of improving the food systems. Another key thematic area that we focused on for Sierra Leone was the development of the marine, fishery, and aquatic food systems, because in Sierra Leone, the fishery sector contributes to 80% of our protein that we use. We don't have much of cattle. So we cannot talk about sustainable food systems without developing the aquatic and fisheries industry. We also looked at the governance approach, Because the food systems uses multi-stakeholder approach for its sustainability, we looked at the multi-stakeholder approaches that we had with the Scaling Up Nutrition Secretariat, and we tried to see how we can use the work that we had done with the Scaling Up Nutrition and how this could be impacted on the food systems. So this was basically how we tried to organize it. Thank you.
Thank you a lot, Minister. We see this very good case of Africa. Minister, so moving to the case of Bhutan. What type of collaborations and partnerships has Bhutan forged with international organizations and other countries to leverage knowledge, resources, and technical expertise? And are there any similarities between what Sierra Leone did and what's being done in Bhutan?
Thank you. First of all, thank you, Leonard, for the introduction and the question. And then I also would like to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to submit at least some of the experiences of Bhutan to all the colleagues here in the room. On the collaborations, yes, I mean, as it is, we have been collaborating with all the multinational agencies and also at the bilateral level when it comes to both the historical approach that we have been making into the food systems, and also in the transformation of the food systems. We have been working very closely with the multinational agencies, which includes FAO, WFP, IFAD, UNDP, and many other UN agencies in the country. And then, of course, beyond that, then the World Bank, ADB, and bilaterally, we have been very closely collaborating with the government of India, government of Japan, the European Union, and you know, the many other countries. Now, from the assessment of the food systems in the transformation mode, it has been felt even more need of you know, collaboration within the country, and of course with all the development partners. So that way, within the country, we are actually, the government has been working on to collaborate more with the private sector, with you know, and also forming farmers groups, the youth cooperatives, farmers cooperatives, and so on, to work on in a entrepreneurship mode. And then with the development partners, of course, with the development partners, we need to collaborate more on gaining innovative knowledges, in learning more about technologies, and also, of course, very importantly, the capacity building of the human resources. At the same time, the also getting support for financial resources. So there's no way that you know, Bhutan alone. First of all, Bhutan is a small country, landlocked country with very limited arable size of land. So we need to we need to transform with innovative technologies, and then also with science. So on that, there's no way we cannot work alone. So the collaboration with the multinational agencies, the bilateral you know, partners, is very important, and we are continuing with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. So a call for collaboration, for a multi-stakeholder, multifaceted approach. And I move to you, Turaya. You're a director in a financial institution. The issue of access to finance is mentioned, the cost of finance. So how do you see and ensure investments in food systems, complexity of food systems, where they are also under a lot of pressure on climate change? How do you ensure that targeted investments are directed towards sustainability, resilience, and equity investments? Over to you.
Thank you very much, Leonard, and thanks you to the organizers for also giving me the opportunity to participate in this panel. Actually, you're asking the $1 million question or the $1 billion question. So for those of you who are not familiar, IFAD is an international financial institution and a specialized UN agency who focuses on small-scale producer and rural poor active in food systems. They are responsible for producing 1/3 of the food globally, but a large number of them go to bed hungry every day. They are the most vulnerable to climate change. A recent study that we conducted showed that only 1.7% of climate funding goes to small-scale producers. So your question is about how can we do better? So we have been actually working in IFAD through different fronts. We are very proud of the long-term partnership with governments through which we have funded programs together to support small-scale producers. At the heart of our raison d'etre and mandate is targeting. We ensure that through projects, our investment and targeting to this underserved market segment. So targeting, to answer your question, is something very important. And that means that when you design your intervention, you need to ensure that you have credible strategies to reach those who are most in need and most likely to be left behind. Of course, the work doesn't stop at design. We need to make sure throughout the project monitoring cycle that the benefits are accruing to those who are actually targeted by the interventions. It's also very important that you take into consideration the specific needs of women, of youth, of people with disabilities, of indigenous people. And that means that we should avoid the one-size-fits-all, because what works also in Sierra Leone may not work in Bhutan, although there are opportunities for cross-fertilizations. So in addition to our sovereign program, through which we have accomplished a lot of results, and actually we had a very good discussion with the both ministers about our collaboration with them, we have launched a few years ago also a program dedicated to direct funding to the private sector. The reality is that the needs are widening and are far beyond what ODA and what governments can support. We need scale-up investment from the private sector, and that means catalytic interventions, blended finance, the right investment to de-risk. And it's not only about investment, it's also about interventions that we can bring to de-risk and incentivize the private sector to fund more small-scale producer and rural poor who are invested in the system. Last but not least, we need to work on regulation and put the right incentives. So if today we have incentives for people to flood using water instead of being more efficient, that's not sending us the right system and not getting us closer to the goal that we have. So working on the right incentive with also the conducive environment to bring and to connect more the private and the public sector investment to the SDGs is definitely part of the to-do list. Thank you.
Thank you, Toraya. So right incentives. Kirti, you are a co-founder of Ecociate Consultants, and you are spearheading an action which is called Earthy and Green. How do you ensure the regulatory environment in India where you operate? How do we ensure a sustainable food system business model linking farmers with consumers to produce safe and healthy products? Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Thanks to organizers for having us here. We are part of Ecociate. For the last 7 years, we've been working with BOP or low-income communities. That's our focus as a consulting research organization. While working in agriculture with the farmers, we found there are a large number of issues for those farmers who have been aggregated as farmer-producer companies. Like the cooperative in India, we have farmer-producer company, 300 to 500 such farmers coming together. Now, entering into sustainable agriculture, few of them have started moving into processing, adding value, and having retail package. When we interacted with them, we found while the scheme, the enabling environment is very supportive, for them to really go down to the market and interact with the consumers become very, very challenging. So what we did, we thought we will work with such farmer producer companies, bring them to one platform. That's how the earthy and green as a e-marketplace got conceptualized. So it's a marketplace which would connect the farmer producer organizations having the capacity to produce 10, 12 different SKUs, bringing them together would be 1,000 SKUs and then connect to the consumer. That's the first part of working with the farmers and farmer organizations. Second part is linking them to the consumers. At a fundamental level, when we as consumers deal with food, we need a basket of choices, a range of choices. We don't just buy any product without having a set of choices. So by linking these 100 such FPOs together at a platform connecting to the consumers, we thought this business model would work, and we have started this pilot to look at. For us, the good thing when we started, we found for the government side, there are two major schemes which is supporting. One is a larger enabling scheme to promote 10,000 farmer producer organizations in India, which is a very good scheme in terms of encouraging this farmer organization to come. Second, along with this, there is a mission by government to promote natural farming. So two fundamental aspects for us, which are very critical, been supported by the government. And we thought it's time for us to look at. However, when we look at the schemes, they support the farmers to a level of empowering them to become a collective, deal with the basic production system. But the bigger challenge for them is to take to the market. Earthy and green as a model, as a pilot, we are giving requisite training, skill, and avenues for these farmer organizations to become more entrepreneurial, more in terms of their capacity really to deal with the market. That's where we'll be working with them and bringing them together as a model. And we believe this is a very interesting food system transformation model. If you talk about typical food system transformation, we talk about production, sustainable production system, we talk about sustainable supply chain and marketing. But in our model, if you look at fairness, if you look at inclusivity, if you look at synergies at the agroecological systems, if you look at, let's say, at the level of economic diversification, all these principles which are deep rooted into food system transformation are all now been handled in this model. We are at a level of pilot. We are looking at how we get the right kind of development financing agencies to come forward and support this to be scaled up across, and very hopeful because it's a big social need in India. And we think it is to be invested, not like a typical 7% to 12% interest rate, but some kind of a mechanism really to support. My last point in this first round, see, for last so many decades, we've been supporting producers, farmers to adopt sustainable production system. Is great. It has to be done because they are primary stakeholder. We have reached to a stage in terms of food system transformation where our consumers are also primary stakeholder. It is time for us to invest on consumer education. Post-COVID, people don't need to be educated, they know it. But behavior change, linking them to the right, making them responsible is something a dire need at this point of time. My urge would be to this August gathering, like while we should continue the production system-led work, I think time has come for us to focus on the consumers, educating, incentivizing, subsidizing. I'm not a finance expert, but I urge we need to invest. In past, if you look at in health, public health system, we have invested on consumer awareness. We have invested for pharma industry on the health products and other things. What stops us is a $200 billion industry in India. For us, it is time to really look at consumer side story in order to make them more responsible, adaptive to natural, organic, agroecology centric products as their main food system need to be done. Thank you so much.
Kirti, I think this is a key issue, the willingness to pay, the consumer behavior dimension, and how willing are consumers, even in developing countries, to pay extra for that fairness, that equity dimension, and also that sustainability dimension. I think that's important. And also what I haven't heard much, maybe you can elaborate it in the Q&A, is the issue of digital. How do you use digital tools to make this connection between producers and consumers more sort of transparency? Sure. That's why we don't just say digital for the sake of digital, but digital for the sake of making value chains more transparent. I'll open up the floor for Q&A. I know that this is a hybrid First of all, I thank the interpreters. It's a hybrid system, so it means that we have a number of participants online. But I'll take a cluster, and if my colleagues spot any questions that need also to be addressed online, don't hesitate. I open the floor, just introduce yourselves, your organization, if possible, if you target the question to one of our keynote speakers, and I'll take a few of them so that we'll have another round of discussions. So who wants to start? Don't be shy.
Thank you very much. My name is Bernard Kimoro. I work for the government of Kenya, Minister of Agriculture. I think I met the Vice President in COP27. My question is, I think a lot has been done, and I'm very happy to hear about Sierra Leone and as well as Bhutan. But probably one of the biggest challenges, even from where I come from, is the issue of assessments. So how are we measuring these successes that we are making? Are we documenting this so that we can be able to learn from each other? Because I believe one of the reasons why we're here is also to be able to learn and create that network. So how are we making these assessments for us to be able to see that we can learn from other countries in different parts of the world? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you a lot. That's something that IFAD and Mansour in his conclusion, how do we use the dynamics of the UN Food System Summit to have peer review and sharing experiences. It's not only Sierra Leone and Bhutan, but also India and Bhutan and regional specificities. Good question. Any other questions? Yes.
Good afternoon. I'm Aminat Rekhoma from Sierra Leone. I want to thank the panel for a very rich topics that you've talked about. My question goes to India. You talked about the cooperatives and the farmers cooperative and the linkages. How effective is this cooperative? How did you manage the linkages? If they're that successful, because I think this is something that other countries will want to know about. You talked about 500 farmers or 500 cooperatives coming together. I just want to know a little bit more of how you manage these linkages.
We take another one, and then we'll do a quick response. Yes.
My name is Sharif from Sierra Leone also. And again to India. While I'm completely sold on the willingness to pay model for smallholder farmers, I was wondering around the policy environment, what are the key drivers, the externalities in terms of policy options that is actually driving this model? Thank you.
So you brought, Minister, a big contingent from Sierra Leone, but they are all asking India. Okay, Kirti, you have a number of questions your side. What makes your pilot, it's still a pilot, a successful sort of indicator of scalability? And what are the ingredients?
I think it's a pilot, but since I personally have almost spent 27 years in this sector. So it's not that I'm just talking the experience I'm getting from the pilots, but also I have worked with farmer producer organizations, been consultant to World Bank, IFAD and all that. So based on that, I would say what we've been trying to do is to look at both sides seriously. The consumer awareness, talking to consumers, meeting them at the ground level, like in India, if you look at high-rising buildings and all that coming, societies coming up, we are putting stalls, talking to them, interacting them, educating them. See, once you look at natural and organic, the best part is you just don't buy. As a consumer, you need to touch and feel. What is this product? How it is different? So starting from there, we are using this now the new jargon called physical and digital. So we are talking to them and then also interacting with over WhatsApp and all that, which is basically connecting regularly, telling about the new things. Like this whole movement around millets recently. This has picked up in India in a big way. 23 is the year for millets. Now, we are in North India and we are finding millet is not really the staple food for North Indians. But when we started pushing it in the region we are working, we found that people have started like asking for it, calling for these products, like buying his products, and also telling their neighbors to buy, which means if you engage with this customer, the behavior would change. So that's how we need to really intensify the engagement at the customer level. We are very good at the engagement level with the farmer organizations, but at the customer level, you have to do equal effort, both physical and digital. That's the point number one. Coming back to how the effective this whole producer organizations, like India, traditionally, if you look at for the last 100, 120 years, we have this cooperative movement. Like 20 years back, we thought cooperative movement is hijacked by the political system. Like many people in the political system trying to become a member and hijacking that. So government came out with a system of making producer as a company under the company law. We call it farmer producers company. Now, after having this, lot of kind of benefits have come to the farmer organization to take their decisions, manage it properly without external hindrances. Having done that, recently, as I said, Government of India at the central level runs a scheme of 10,000 farmer producer organizations, essentially would be farmer producer company. Every FPO from the government side getting an incentive to run it for 5 years, unlike before. So there is a financial incentive for the CEO of this company, for the accountant of this company. So for 5 years is a big amount, big time. And that's what has been given to these people. And there are many other things. That's how the scheme is becoming more people or the farmers friendly. Second, like why we got into this thing of organic and natural, because that's what people are asking for. But there are so many schemes now promoting natural and organic. There are a number of things, but we have a mission now at a central level. This mission is mandated to ensure that agroecology best practices are run from the center down to the level of Gram Panchayat, which is the village institution, and we run it. These are the schemes which are very deep rooted in India, and we are doing it. And this is how we are getting the success. Like a lot of effort going to educate, empower, handhold these farmer organizations. Today, you will find at least out of 10,000, many are formed, but 500 to 700 FPOs are actually doing trading, actually selling inputs to their members. And many of them are currently connected by on various digital tools or IT tools. And that's expediting the process. All the weather forecast, the package of practices through online, all coming now through them. And that's what helping these farmer organizations to grow rapidly, do input, do trading. But in our case, we are finding very few are actually getting into true enterprise, which is processing, value adding, and creating your package. Actually, Earthy and Green is not a brand. It's a platform. It's a marketplace. So there we need to really support. Last point very quickly to the policy environment. I already touched upon that. What are the bigger policy environments? But the farmers movement in India has really picked up in terms of their voice now heard. These schemes, two major schemes I told. There is an infra fund by central government where you are getting lakhs of like million rupees for setting up micro infrastructure at the village level. That was not before. Like it's a financial tool been done, and FPOs are the biggest beneficiaries. I told about the millet mission, which is about encouraging millet production to happen. A lot of investment happening, Leonard, like we have now in a state, millet processing machineries are different from like you're processing the wheat and other things. Now, these machines at a central level were never accepted by the bankers because you need a standardized machine. Some governments are working to create those machines and ensure that this is approved by the right authority and banks give loan through for these products. So these are the big and small things which are happening all over, which is creating this environment. Having said this, I would say similar effort and mechanism should also be put on consumer side story, which is silently, like slightly silent in our country. We need to focus on that.
Thanks, Kirti. From the two ministers, okay, Minister Piaget, you operate in Western Africa, and Minister Yeshi, you operate in an Asian context. How do you share experiences, best practices to respond to our Kenyan colleague? Is there any cross-fertilization of ideas? Do you use regional organizations to do so? Maybe Minister.
Thank you. Let me very quickly touch on this regional cooperation as well as on the benefits of the farmers groups and cooperatives in the context of Bhutan. Now, in the regional and bilateral cooperation in the food systems, I think, a very good example that we can talk of between India and Bhutan, for example, is that, although by size of the country and the production size, it is totally different, but then because of the altitudinal difference, because of the atmospheric or climatic condition differences, we actually produce at different seasons the agricultural produces. So that way, Bhutan can export our produces to India when it is a lean season in India, and Bhutan imports food resources from India when it is a lean season in Bhutan. So in monsoon, now most of the northern plains in India get flooded. The temperature is so high, so the crop productivity is much lower in the monsoon seasons in India. So that time Bhutan actually exports the produces to India, and then vice versa in winter. Bhutan is so cold. The temperature is so low to produce, the agriculture produces. So that's the season the trading cooperation is very important when you have such, the climatic or the environmental differences in the region. The farmers groups and cooperatives in the context of Bhutan, as I said earlier, because we have such a small land holding for agriculture, and also because farmers have the full ownership of their land, agricultural land. So given the opportunity or given the choice, farmers would actually go with the diversity of cropping patterns, which in the production, then the production quantity will be so small, so which is not very economically viable for marketing. So in this, we actually form farmers groups or the youth cooperatives to consolidate their land together to produce whatever whatever is chosen to be produced in a bigger scale, so that the government can invest into the value chain processes, into the marketing infrastructures, and also explore markets, and then let the farmers groups and cooperatives to market their produces. So for small population and small land holding nature, the farmers groups and cooperatives are very much beneficial when it comes to very good when it comes to actually setting up the marketing opportunities. Thank you.
Their experiences from West Africa, helping also Eastern Africa. Are there any experiences to be shared?
Well, from West Africa, we have our regional groupings. We have ECOWAS, we have the African Union, to which several countries, including Sierra Leone, have made commitments. We use those hubs to share experiences and make commitments so that we come from an African common position when it comes to food systems transformation. At the national level, we aim to create a food systems hub at the highest level. This is because we realize that the work on food systems involves the engagement of many sectors and many stakeholders. So in order to have a convening power at the highest level, we have tried to model what we have done for Scaling Up Nutrition Initiative, which is based in the presidency. And we want to create a food systems hub, which is also going to be based in the presidency, to collaborate the various sectors. Already, because Feed Sierra Leone is a manifesto commitment by His Excellency the President, there's a presidential steering committee on food security, which has already been created. So if we have this hub, which can monitor and bring together all the various activities needed for food systems transformation, I believe that practice would help. Because, for example, somebody mentioned about assessment recently, we want to involve what we call the National Monitoring and Evaluation Directorate, which is housed in the presidency. If we have a body that would be responsible for monitoring and evaluating and assessing the progress that we have made as far as the food systems is concerned, it will help us better implement and transform. Also, if we have a body, for example, that would bring all of the activities together and factor that into a national development plan, it would avoid the duplication of efforts, one ministry working on something and another ministry working on something, duplication of efforts. And that kind of hub, we believe, is the way to cross-learn, it's the way to monitor, it's the way to assess all that is going on at the highest level. To drive food systems involve not only individual activities, but also political will at the highest level. We saw that when we decided to make education our flagship program and had an apparatus that drove the activities at the highest level. And we believe if we do the same for food systems, we would be able to achieve the 2030 agenda.
Thank you, Minister. Music to my ears, having presidential oversight, interministerial, because clearly we also know in our assessments that when you have a presidential buy-in, interministerial, where the Minister of Finance is at the core, clearly this is key. And this will make the life of IFAD easier. So, Tura, how do you see the model that we have just heard in terms of presidential buy-in, interministerial connection, in terms of targeting your investments in a smarter way? Monitoring and evaluation was mentioned. You have a very robust M&D system. So how can we share what is that marginal extra euro or dollar spent, which has a return on investment, which has big impact?
Thank you very much for the very good question. And also thank you to the colleague from Kenya. The issue of measuring results is very important for different reasons. The first one is that would allow you to understand whether you are doing the right things and doing things right and take corrective action. But increasingly, because of this nation discussion about rewarding for positive environmental externalities, we need to ensure that we are measuring in a rigorous manner the results to avoid also greenwashing or creating disincentives actually within the system for people to actually draw benefits without making the necessary options. As IFAD, we do a lot of work to foster the rigorous results measurement, but also this peer-to-peer. And given the limited time we have, I'll just highlight a few things. One, of course, for each project that we are co-financing with our partner governments or with private sector partners, there is a log frame with rigorous indicators that we track throughout the process. We do supervision to make sure that things are actually reflecting the reality on the ground. But what also makes us different, and I think Leonard hinted to that, is that we are the only international financial institution that does rigorous impact assessment on a certain share of our projects. I would be very happy to link you to my colleague who is leading this work. And that's when we talk about impact assessment, it's not about measuring just the number of jobs or number of the beneficiaries. It's about having a control group and to being able to isolate the value added of the additional dollar that has been invested. And that, of course, allows you to draw a lot of lessons because it allows to see how effective is the interventions. And we are trying, of course, to leverage this work, not only to report on our impact, because our donors are also need to be accountable, but also to have discussions with our member partners in order to inform their decision. We are also leading the Public Development Bank Coalition, which is one of the outcome of the Food Systems Summit, through which actually one of the key features is to foster this peer-to-peer learning. So today we have Public Development Bank from Latin America being supported by Public Development Bank in Asia and Africa, too, on ESG aspect. So this peer-to-peer learning, and it's not only about the good results, it's about the mistakes, to avoid that someone else does replicate the same mistakes. So that's also something that we do. We draw also a lot of lessons internally. So we are trying to create, we have communities of practice where we try also to foster dialogue. South-South Triangle cooperation is something that we are also promoting through our project, so that we have maybe governments for Brazil talking to Bhutan or talking to Sierra Leone. And of course, through our internal review process, we also try to bring colleagues from covering different regions so that we can also benefit from our global expertise and experience. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Turaya. I can't take more questions because I'm being flagged yellow cards and I'm soon getting a red card. So, Mohammed, if you can maybe conclude, you heard a lot from our distinguished speakers, also questions from the floor. How do you see the work on assessments and dialogues linking better for targeted investment? And what is your sort of ingredient, silver bullet that you can share with us?
Thank you very much. That is a good question, but my role here is to conclude, right? So no, just maybe a few words on, the FAO Investment Center and the type of work we do. We are in FAO the entry points for supporting our member countries and supporting investors and partners to do the right investments, whether public, whether private. So FAO as a technical agency is host to data, knowledge, expertise, convenient power on food security issues and the larger agenda of the SDGs and natural resource management. And through the investment center, you get all that knowledge, data, expertise to bear on investments in order to help guide investments to do the right thing. And it is very critical, the business model, because it is what shows that FAO supports member countries to achieve impact at scale. By marrying knowledge with money, you can expect that you are guiding investment to do the right thing. And actually, it is really the place also where FAO works with the financial institutions like IFAD, the World Bank, and virtually all the IFIs. So we provide 4 solutions to our member countries. So the work on food systems assessment is part of the first solution that we provide, which is to support strategic investment planning and policies, enabling policies. And that is where we are working with the EU, with Sierra, with AgriNatura, in order to help our member countries, and here it's 50 countries we started with, to really have a very deep assessment of their food systems and come up with what are, the key question is, what are the sustainability issues that we are facing? And we are talking about economic, social, environmental, climate, issues here. The second solution is to support public investments. And here we support annually, last year, 8.8 billion of investments in 45 countries, for example. Private investments as well. We work on the public good side to leverage more private investment in our space. And that is really critical because you all know that, the public investments are not enough to transform the agri-food systems. I think that, it was also one of the themes of the day. We support innovative finance, working also with the EU on blended finance, green finance, blue finance, and so on. So annually, we work in 120 countries, and I think there is here scope really for cross-learning across the continent, the countries, and so on, that we also do with strong South-South and triangular dimension. Now, on the food systems assessments, actually what we came up with in those assessments is really a number of those sustainability questions. But for us, it's not sufficient. We want to reflect all that to get it to land. And the way to get it to land is to see what are the entry points for policy reform and what are the entry points for investments. The investments of today are your impact of tomorrow. If you don't invest today, don't claim that you want to achieve any impact tomorrow. So for us, that is the test. So all that, that body of work, how we can get it to really guide new investments and so on. But I must say that just one concluding remark, I see the red flags and so on, which is that I think, Kirti said the behavioral change, and here we see it really happening. I'm so happy to hear both excellencies talking about trade, talking about the other sectors, talking about what are not their sectors, actually, and they want to coordinate. And I think that if we all start thinking like that, what are the consumers, what are the youth, and so on, then we will be achieving a lot. And I think this is really a major step forward that we were listening, hearing from the panel here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mohammed. Thanks a lot to the two distinguished ministers from Bhutan and from Sierra Leone. Thanks to Raya. Thanks to Kirti. Thanks to all of you, those online and those in physical mode. I thank my team and James and all the FAO team and Sirad for making this happen. So a good lunch. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.